Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Savvy Scoop, the podcast where we explore the intersection of legal technology, law firm culture, and the ever evolving business of law. I am your host, Doug Straker, CEO of Savvy Training and Consulting. We help law firms across the country elevate their training, deploy powerful learning management systems, and make the most of their technology investments. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Melissa Wimsatt, the Director of Administration at Bass, Berry & Sims, a firm known for its strong culture, client-focused innovation, and commitment to excellence. Melissa brings a wealth of experience in HR, strategy, learning and development, and operations, and she is one of those leaders making a massive impact at the C-level as well as behind the scenes. Melissa, welcome to the Savvy Scoop, and I'm very excited to dive into this conversation with you.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited too.
So let's start first with your journey. You've had a very impressive career so far in human resources, special projects, and talent development, starting as a senior trainer at Bass, Berry & Sims. And now you've been there for almost 20 years. Can you give us a snapshot of how you landed where you are today and focusing on your internal drive and your grit and your ability to foster deep relationships with those around you? And essentially, how have you been able to keep moving up the ranks?
Well, I would say, first of all, how I managed to get here. I was actually working for a client of the firm, and a headhunter reached out to me and said, "Have you ever thought about working for a law firm?" And I honestly had no concept of big law at the time and kind of wondered what they would actually even need a trainer for. But never wanted to miss out on an adventure. I was like, sure, let's see what happens. And so 19 years later, still on the adventure. But how I have managed to stick there is one, I just work for a great firm. We have great people. No 2 days are alike. It's challenging. I like challenges, and you don't get bored. And so, one of the ways that I've sort of stuck with the career, moved up the ladder, is I've always just had that same attitude of let's try something new. And so anytime someone in the firm has reached out to me and said, "Have you ever thought about this?" I'm like, "No, but let's try it. Let's see what happens." So just taking on new challenges and opportunities will present themselves.
How much, thank you for that. How much do you think it is people coming to you with ideas, or now that you've been in this wild legal industry, long enough, how much of the, movement of where you want to take the firm is what you learn, what you know at a gut level, what you learn from others and conferences? Like, where do you get your ideas and inspiration, and how do you sell it to your internal constituents?
It's a great question. I would say a little bit of all of those places. A lot of times you'll go to a conference, you'll get lots of good ideas, and you'll think, oh, I want to take that back and make an immediate impact. But the reality is, half of opportunities is timing, right? And so that idea that you take back may be excellent, but not right then. And so some of it is just having things in your toolkit to go, okay, maybe this isn't the right time to do this particular initiative, but I'm going to take these particular skills and apply it towards something else, right? Um, so some of it's just, having the actual, substantive knowledge for the items you want to do.
Right.
A lot of it is also just people skills and understanding, reading the room, figuring out, okay, who's my audience, and that's from my training background, honestly. Um, you know, Figuring out, okay, this group's ready for this. We're going to jump right into this skill level. The same thing then can be said when you're dealing with selling an idea. I want to present this idea to the C-suite. I need to make sure that they're in the right place. They need to understand the challenge that's presented, and what we're trying to solve for. Um, and then some of it's just having the time to be quiet. A lot of times I always tell my teams when I'm working with them, I'm like, when I was washing my hair, and that's sort of my code for I was, doing something, driving to work or doing the dishes, and my mind wasn't really focused on work. And the ideas sometimes just come there. And of course, a lot of people like to call that mindfulness, but in general, it's just a matter of, figuring out those quiet spaces where you can let ideas germinate. And sometimes it's when you're washing your hair, and sometimes it's when you're, sitting in a meditation session.
So, when I had when I was on the inside of a law firm, when I was on your side of the podcast,
Hmm.
I felt like it was my job to get the partners or the C level about 80% of the way there. That I would come to them with, say, three options. Any one of the three, would work, and I had that one that I wanted to work a little bit more. How do you not just inspire confidence, but how do you build that consensus to get your attorney partners to do what you want them to do?
Sure. Well, I think first of all, making sure that everybody understands the problem you're trying to solve, right? I think, sometimes message delivered is not message received, and so making sure that you're all talking about the same thing is the first challenge. Once you've identified the issue and everyone agrees that it's an issue, then you can really start hammering around, what is the best way to solve it. And then some of that also is just driven by the culture of the firm that you work in. Some firms want that consultative, methodology of here's what I would recommend. Other times it's a more top-down approach and they say, here's what we want done. And then you've got to go figure out how to execute. And so again, determining which scenario you're operating in will help you figure out the right approach with what you come to the table with.
That was a perfect segue. So Bassberry and Sims has a great reputation in the industry, and I'm curious, what is it like to work there? What is, do you have like an average day to day? Like, what is in your day when what today is Monday? So on a given Monday, like, do you know what the week looks like? It's a great place to work, but I'm also curious, why is it a great place to be a client?
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously, I think it's a great place. Been here almost 20 years, so I can't speak highly enough of it. I would say, one of the things that makes our culture so great are the people that I work with. Um, my typical day is a lot of meetings. A lot of people will say that you're always in meetings, but one of the best ways to get things done is to really collaborate, and that's one of our core values. It's one of the ways that we best serve our clients is to be very collaborative. And so we make sure that we get all the right people at the table because, I may not have all the expertise needed in a particular area. I need to get somebody that does. And so we're always looking to make sure we have the right teams together. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing is making sure the right hand knows what the left hand's doing. A lot of communication, a lot of again, getting the right players mixed together. You might have a subject matter expert that is great, but maybe they're not the best to deliver a message. And so who can partner with that person to sort of fill in those gaps?
So, do you have like an annual Bassberry Sims strategic plan that you work off of? What is like, how do you decide what are the long term goals, what are the short term goals, what needs execution today versus what requires, a variety of meetings in order to build that consensus and say, all right,
Sure.
we're about to make a decision, let's make sure it's the right one. But how do you decide, what's in the strategic plan? Do you build it? Now that you're director of administration, yeah, I assume you'd like, here is where we're going and what we're doing.
Sure. Of course, we have a strategic plan that sort of gives us the big picture vision. And then within each of the administrative departments, we all operate on sort of 3 to 5 year plans. Here's where we're trying to go. And then, of course, bring that down to more what are we doing this year? What are we doing this month? What are we doing this quarter? That type of thing, just to help stay on track. And then, of course, operationally, the all of the departments sort of meet on some regular basis to make sure that we are all aligned, make sure we're all rowing together in the same direction. Because my department goals may not, naturally segue with, say, recruiting's goals, but we want to make sure that we get there. And so that's part of it is we make sure that we're all meeting and rowing in the same direction.
So Bassberry and Sims has been doing this for 100 years, which is
Hmm.
impressive longevity. Um, from a strategic plan standpoint, does the budget come first or do the ideas come first? Right? Like if you go to a conference, you're like, oh, those cats down in that back row were amazing, and I want to test this. Like when it comes to, of course, I'm thinking, about technology, but when it comes to an idea, a tech idea, innovation, what is something that's imminent that you need to
Hmm.
work on versus what is something that can tap the brakes a little bit?
So, the way we approach all of our technology and other initiatives really is centered around client service. Now, that sounds like a marketing phrase, right? But what I mean by that is our internal clients are our attorneys. And so everything that we look at implementing and doing is really with the focus of how can we serve our clients better? And if our clients are our attorneys, then what are we doing that makes our attorneys better able to service their clients? Our sort of methodology, if you take like the project planning pyramid of like time, resources, and money, right? Um, we tend to value attorney time over the others. And so if we're looking at a project and it's going to be disruptive to our attorneys, then we're going to spend more time or more money than we are going to be to disrupt that time. Because again, our value is that we're helping our clients, our attorneys, serve their clients. And so we don't necessarily look at it like, oh, it's got to be done in 6 months or, it's going to cost this much. We look at it and go, how is it best serving the ultimate client? But in the interim, is it going to make our administrative functions more efficient? Is it going to make life easier for our attorneys? Are they going to be able to take less time away from billing by implementing better solutions?
So I'm going to ask this in a curious way. What is a piece of technology, a platform or whatever, that you have acquired and then later regretted in the sense of it wasn't the right tool at the right time? So it's a two-part question. What
Mhm.
is a piece of technology that has really been successful in the firm that you didn't see it as being successful at the time, and another one of we tried it and it didn't work. What are some of the lessons learned in each of those scenarios?
Sure. Oh gosh. I would like to say that everything we've ever put in place has been amazing.
Yes, of course it has.
I'm I'm not sure I'd be telling the truth if I said that. I think I don't have a specific tool, although I do know we've had them. I don't have one coming to mind. What I would say is, generally speaking, when we've had a tool that's not successful, it falls into one of two buckets. It's either because it didn't meet the needs that we thought it was, we either had misidentified the need or we didn't do enough, testing of the product to make sure that it was going to actually meet the need that we thought it would. The other bucket is we didn't socialize it enough. And by socialize it, I mean communicate, train, sell, etc. Right? I always tell my trainers they're part marketing people.
Yeah,
Part of their job is to market the tools, right? Sometimes if you build it, they come, to use the Field of Dreams reference, right?
right.
But a lot of times you have to spend a lot of effort showing people here's where it provides value. Here's how it can make your life easier. And as soon as you find that one little hook, it sells itself, right? And the training part then becomes easy because it's just a matter of showing them how to use the tool. A lot of times the hardest part is that socialization piece of getting people interested in what this can do for them. And so when we nail those things, the technology is, it works great, right? But if you don't get those things, if you don't test it, if you don't make sure the product actually does what you need it to do, that's when you end up with those regrets.
How do you socialize it? How do you
Mhm.
socialize a new tool or opportunity in a way that doesn't materially take away from your attorneys serving their clients?
Sure. Creatively is the short answer.
Yeah,
We use a lot of different methods we do an evaluation of each product to say, okay, how much change is this going to implement? How much attention do we want to draw to this, right? Because obviously there's always change going on. There's always competing, needs for attention. And so we work with the other departments to make sure we try and time things so we're not, rolling out massive technology infrastructure change at the same time we're doing some major conference along with, I don't know, practice group goal setting or something, right? We want to be careful around everyone's attention span. Um, from there, it sort of depends. First of all, one of the things that we do with our clients, again, we do internally as well, and that is we really provide sort of custom tailored solutions. And what I mean by that is when we look at training, if we're training a group of legal assistants, we tend to know our audience very well. And so we know our legal assistants prefer, as an example, keyboard shortcuts, right? So our training is going to focus on that particular skill set because it's what they like and how they're going to use it. On the other hand, if we're working with a group of attorneys that maybe they travel a lot, we know they're very mobile. We're going to focus more on features around mobility and, cell phone use or being able to use it remotely, things like that. And so by tailoring the messages, you're able to capture their attention. It's that what's in it for me, essentially. And so we leverage that. And then from there, it's just the tools we use. We might use Teams. We might use one of our newsletters. We might do in-person training. We might do one-on-one, we might do walkarounds. But again, that is driven based on how we're trying to reach the audience and what we're trying to message.
Do you and your trainers use learning persona? So when you custom make the training for your people, do you have specific training that's custom tailored for a learning persona of partner versus associate versus professional staff? Like how do you create those learning personas in order to give them the bite-sized pieces that each different person or practice group might need?
Sure. So we do use some of that. Generally, not with our written tools. Most of our written tools are really more focused around what's the purpose? What are we trying to do? So we might do a full user guide that sort of shows everything, right? More rare these days because most people don't want to read 50, 60, 100 pages. So instead, we'll spend a lot of time focusing on our quick reference guides. And maybe those quick reference guides will be focused on features. And so instead of it being focused towards a persona, anybody can use it. But what that allows us to do by breaking it down into small pieces is, these three features an attorney might want. And these three features a legal assistant might want. And then you can give the correct guides to that correct persona. The personas really more are around our in-person training or Zoom, that online training as well. But the point being is that we might do training that's specific for paralegals or specific for attorneys and invite that group to that. Or we might go, if we're trying to reach attorneys, we might get into a practice group meeting and do a quick 10-minute training, again, tailored towards that audience.
Prior to COVID in 2019, and I think I was at your firm, I would go around, I would speak about, the idea of lean training and staffing ratios are changing and all of that. And then COVID happened. How do you feel the lawyers at your firm are they how are you shaping the staffing ratios in response to lawyers doing more of their own actual work that isn't the legal work, but more documentation or
Sure.
documents, stuff like that?
Sure. Well, one of the things, obviously, with training, it makes that much more critical, right? And so we really try and stay focused on keeping their skill sets. It used to be that you really only had to worry about the technology with, subsets of people, right? Maybe you had some attorneys that were really into the technology, and so they'd do training, but the partners, you don't even really worry about training them because they were just going to hand it to their legal assistant, right?
Right.
Well, that's not the case anymore. And so we do make sure that we target broader groups of attorneys and give them the opportunities to learn those skills. In terms of how we then do support, we actually moved during COVID to a team model. And so all of our legal assistants are on one team. We support the entire firm. And there's been a lot of great leverage opportunities there. One of the solutions that we presented with this, it was a problem we were trying to solve, is that not all legal assistants know all things, right? And so your support level depended on the assistant that you had.
Right.
Maybe your assistant was a whiz in Excel, but couldn't work PowerPoint at all. And that's fine if that's what your practice needed. But if you needed PowerPoint, you were kind of out of luck. Now with the team model, we have all of those skills and they are able to access any of those products. And so there isn't a product that we offer as a firm that an attorney doesn't have access to now with that. And we've been able to do that and reduce the overall ratios, which has also been very nice.
That is great. So that leads me to a question of how do you train your trainers and how do you elevate all of your professional staff so that more of any of them can help any attorney in any situation?
Sure. Well, train the trainer is always a challenge, right? Obviously, when we do new products and they have, train the trainer sessions, we take that anytime it's offered, right? But a lot of what my trainers do and why they're really good at what they do is they're very curious, and so they train themselves. If they may take the materials that a product is given to them, but then my trainers are actually part of all of our pilot and testing groups. They kick the tires on all of our technology. One of the advantages that they bring to the table is the ability to look at it from a user standpoint. A challenge that IT, at least in our firm, has is that they don't use the products that they
Right.
support, right? And so it makes it hard for them to anticipate those needs of how, there are times where they're like, why would a user even do that? And we're like, oh, this is why,
Here's
you
why.
know?
Yeah.
And so having our trainers be part of that really helps from that side, again, kicking those tires. But what it also does is allows the trainers to train themselves and get familiar with the product before we roll it out. But if there's not, that opportunity, maybe it's just something we're going to plug and play real quick. They are experts at Google and YouTube and all the things, and of course they use their peer networks too to say, hey, who's used this product, what do we need to know about it? And so they're very self-motivated around learning.
Hopefully, the Savvy Smart Content Library has been helpful just a little bit in
Absolutely.
any of those things.
That no, it absolutely does. That goes without saying. I mean, all of our core products, that's our first place we go to is to say, okay, what documents are out there? What can we learn? And then from there, if it's not there, they'll go outside. But you are correct.
So the buzzwords right now everywhere is AI this, AI that.
Mhm.
Without going deep into the weeds on it, just what is your 30-second stance on the role of AI in the firm today and where you think it might be helpful, leverageable in the next, I mean, I would say 3 years, but more like 3 months.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We're in the process of identifying, what AI tools we want, as a firm and how we want to use it. And I agree with you. We look at signing contracts and, there's always some benefit in signing a longer term contract and we kind of do that. Okay, 3 years from now, I mean, what is AI even going to look like? It's going to be completely different. So does it make sense to go that far out? I think long term, AI is going to be built into everything. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing is right now you've got players that are very AI specific, but every tool that we have is, building some AI component. So at some point, it's going to be just ubiquitous, right? I think from a big picture perspective, one of the concerns that I have around AI is sort of the concept of learned helplessness, right?
Mm.
I was actually discussing with my teenage son, the use of AI. And one of the things that I explained to him is it's a tool and it's great and it can make you more efficient, but only if you know what it is that you're trying to do to begin with. If you've never written an essay, having AI write an essay for you is not doing you any good in the long term,
Right.
right? In the immediate need, great, I got a great essay. But if you don't know those basic skills, how are you going to build from there, right? And so you're building on a false foundation. And so that's my bigger concern is just from a training and learning perspective. I worry about, that it undermining some of those basic skill sets. But then I think about things like the calculator, right? I mean, we managed to survive the calculator, which it once was,
Yeah.
immense technology.
And
And so I
and I can
think
barely do longhand math anymore at all.
anymore, right? Exactly. So I think, what I try and focus on, the common denominator I see with most of the AI tools is prompting ability. And if I step back from sort of my, fears of the AI overlord, um, what I really have come to determine is prompting is just another way of saying problem solving, right? It's the ability to ask questions, it's the ability to dig into things. And so I try and just focus back on if we keep focused on the idea of making good problem solvers in terms of training and development, then it goes back to what I talked about, what my trainers are so good at. They self-train. And
Yep.
so teach your users how to problem solve, and they will be really excellent technology users as well.
As you look at the law firm landscape in the next 3 years, not just 3 months, but 3 years, um, as a 100-year-old law firm at Bassberry and Sims, what are like three of the biggest challenges or obstacles that you want to overcome as director of administration? Where do you want to leave the shop when you decide
Sure.
to move on?
Well, hopefully I've got a long ramp before I do move on, but
Yes, of course.
so who knows what'll happen, in that time frame. But I would say um, one of the things that always concerns me is the pace of change, right?
Hmm.
From a coming from a training background at my roots, I know that people are not as adept at technology as they should be. And each rollout or change means that we have more risk for more layers of holes in people's knowledge, right? And all of that just provides more opportunity for error and risk and things like that. And so one of the things that as I mentioned just before, is that I really like to focus on teaching people to be sort of self-sufficient, teach them to fish, right? And so if you can teach people how to approach technology with a curious mindset, where yes, it's a change, but once you learn some really basic skills, you're just building on those things, right? And so then it's not scary anymore.
Right.
And so really just helping our users, our attorneys, our staff to understand that technology is a tool and it is something that you can master. You just have to have, certain basic skill sets. And then you're able to build, consistently. I think that's sort of the foundation that I've always tried to go with, and hopefully we'll leave in a really good place at some point.
Well, yeah, thank you. And I mean, I think, a lot of the AI and the technology training and all of that is really at its root how to be more efficient, how to be more efficient in
Hmm.
business processes, how to be more efficient with time and billing, how to capture more time and realization, and then serve the clients of the firm better.
Yeah.
All right, Melissa, let's see. Are you ready for a quick lightning round?
Ooh, okay, let's see.
All right, lightning round. Here we go. Just say the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
And I know the answer to the first one, but it's a teaser. Ski or swim?
Ski.
Okay. What is the best leadership advice that you've ever received?
Um, you can have it all, but not all at the same time. So prioritize.
I like that. What is your favorite productivity tip?
Uh, be ruthless in managing your time.
I like that. I like that. What is one piece of technology, hardware or software, that you cannot live without?
Ooh. Um, I'll go, with the ubiquitous answer, the cell phone.
I was thinking iPad these days, but I'll go with cell phone. Um, and if you had a magic wand and you were gonna use that magic wand to fix one thing in the law firm, not just yours, but say anybody's,
Sure.
what would it be?
Uh, I would say, I don't know. That's a good question. Let me think.
We'll
Hopefully
come
you can
back.
edit out my hem and haw on this one.
We'll come back to it in
Yeah.
episode 17 of the hot sauce challenge. All right, we'll work on that one. We'll think about the magic
Yeah.
wand.
Yeah.
Melissa, it's been a pleasure to have you on the Savvy Scoop podcast. Thank you for your time and your your insights, and I can absolutely tell. I mean, I knew already, but I can tell why you are cherished at Bass, Berry and Sims, and just what a great human you are. And
Well,
I
thank you.
appreciate.
I will slide you that gift card for all those kind words later.
I'll wait for it or not. No need. All right. Well, thank you to everybody listening to the Savvy Scoop podcast. If you like today's episode, please subscribe and share it with somebody in your network who loves great insights about the business of law. And until next time, stay savvy.